Good afternoon. My name is Alena Shautsova. I'm an immigration attorney from Brooklyn, New York. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we have a live Facebook presentation regarding recent immigration news. Various updates connected and not connected to coronavirus, and of course, to President Trump's announcement regarding possible immigration reform bill. So first of all, let's talk about immigration courts. Today we received news that non-detained hearings will be postponed for most courts through July 31st. Basically, in July, most hearings are not going to go forward for non-detained respondents, non-detained persons. Now, how will you know if your particular calendar, if your hearing is going to or not going to go forward? There is no any other way to know but to check with EOIR Twitter account and see what updates there are there for your specific immigration court. The problem is that each court has different schedule. For example, in Newark, New Jersey, some judges are going to go forward with hearings and some judges will not. And as a rule, those judges that are going forward with hearings for non-detained clients, they are going forward with individual hearings, not masters. Master hearings when you have preliminary issues to be resolved, and individual hearings when you have your immigration trial, okay? So you will need to check with your particular court, because from Honolulu to New York, various courts have different rules now as to when and how they will be reopening. Personally, I received only one notice for a rescheduled hearing that was canceled in March due to coronavirus, and now we have a new date set for October in New York, and I do not know if it's going to be just a telephonic hearing because it's a master hearing, or it's going to be, maybe it's going to be postponed again, but that's one case. The rest of the cases have not been rescheduled, and I'm not sure when they're going to be rescheduled. The interesting actually part about that particular situation also is that personally I have not received the notice. Actually, I checked it on my lawyer's EOIR calendar, and that's how I found out that my client is going have to appear in October. And it's very important, by the way, because if you don't appear, you will be found removed, deported on paper. It actually, happens sometimes that notices are not being sent out. The hearing takes place without you, and not your lawyer knew about the hearing. So make sure you check EOIR phone system regularly for yourself. EOIR 800 number. I'll post it in description to this video. Check. Listen to it, even though it's not an official notice, okay? Only paper notice from the court is an official notice for your hearing. Check to make sure that there will not be a problem. Now, again, for masters, people are encouraged to appear telephonically, okay? Most masters can be handled telephonically. Master hearing is only for submission of the documents and, again, preliminary questions. So that's what's going on. July 31st through July 31st, no new dates. For USCIS, USCIS stated it's reopening for individual business. Personally, have not received any notices for rescheduled, canceled hearings, be that oath ceremonies or and for hundreds interviews. So USCIS adjustment of status, have not received any rescheduled notices, have not received any notices for fingerprints, but they're saying they've been reopening. So we're going to see what's going to happen with that. Again, remember, whatever you receive online through this automatic USCIS case updates, what you see in your case status online is not an official notice, okay? Very often people say, Ooh, I received a case update status. My case is scheduled for the interview. It does not mean your interview is going to be scheduled anytime soon, right? Hopefully it will, but it doesn't mean that. All it means is that the case passed the stage of preliminary review and now it's in a line to be scheduled for the interview. It means the interview is actually going to be scheduled in your case. And sometimes it takes a long time for the interview to be scheduled, all right? So the only official notice you can actually rely on for any immigration case is the paper notice, all right? For those of you who tried, for example, to renew your driver's license, you probably were requested to bring an original approval notice for your work authorization. Right, so we really do not know what's going to happen with USCIS appointments and when they're going to be actually rescheduled. Hopefully, they will start being rescheduled, especially taking into consideration the fact that USCIS is basically going bankrupt and needs a bailout from the government. And I personally hope that the government will bail them out, give them the money that they want, because otherwise we're going to find ourselves in a very bad situation. The people, people who are waiting to sponsor family members. Obviously, if 70% of the staff is not working, 70% and more of the cases are going to be affected, or perhaps even all the cases. All right, so what's actually being handled right now? I do receive notices of approval for family-based petitions, waivers, work permits notices, but currently there is a delay in receiving the card itself. I read on one website some sort of news that it happens because, again, USCIS is saving resources or something, and that's why there are huge delays in receiving your actual card after you receive a notice of work permit being granted. So do not be surprised. And also there are delays of receiving Social Security cards after the work permit has been approved, okay? If you're filing for the first time for the work permit, you are automatically filing for the Social Security, even though it's two different departments. And Social Security receives the information, Social Security Administration receives the information, and they are the ones processing the Social Security card, which is going to be mailed to you in a separate envelope from Social Security Administration directly, all right? And there are delays with that too, of course, because of the situation with the coronavirus. So don't be alarmed if you received approval for the work permit but no card itself, all right? So that's quite common right now. Another common issue is huge delays with the Vermont Service Center. We're waiting for receipts, any news for filings for months, really. It's more than a month. You have to wait sometimes almost 2 months to hear back. If you filed something like asylum application or U visa, it takes a very long time to get the feedback. And they're trying to bounce everything back, of course, because the new rules coming into effect, right, on August 25th. So they're trying to bounce all the applications back so that, well, it's my suspicion, maybe they're not, but I just have a feeling because previously it hasn't been happening like that. And of course, I understand there are delays for coronavirus, and I hope I'm wrong, but it looks like that's what's happening, because once your application is filed on or after August 25th, then this new set of rules are going to be applied to you, even though some of those rules that go into effect on August 25th are going to apply even for the applications that were already pending, okay? That's the irony. They kind of backdate the effect of the rules, which in my perspective should not be the case, but what can you do? And the main news, very interesting news, is that President Trump, stated that he is working on a huge immigration bill or executive order that is going to include DACA as a part of it. And presumably, he is working on some sort of immigration reform in the form of an executive order, merit-based, stating that not the family ties, but the merits will control person's eligibility for the green card or for status in the United States. If you recall, we already had news of something like that when they announced this point something system, right? It was some time ago. And now, before November, I understand they're working on some sort of immigration relief. Of course, what's happening here is that it will come in the form of a presidential executive order. Hopefully, it will be a positive situation instead of the negative ones that we have been seeing in the past pretty much 4 years. Candidate for the president, Biden, announced that immigration is on his agenda also as a primary focus for if he wins the elections. So we're going to see what's going to happen. Personally, I'll take any positive action by any of them because my clients need some relief. I'm sure as many of you do too. Green cards for those who are long-term residents in the United States, been paying taxes, been law-abiding, no criminal convictions, right? Relief for those with minor criminal issues that technically become a problem, but in reality is really something very minor that happened to a person 20 years ago and it's still affecting him or her. Of course, DACA has to be resolved. All those children that now adults contributing to our society that must be addressed, must be resolved. I strongly disagree about the family versus marriage situation because let's say we have a family man who has been supporting his wife and children for a long time, 15 years, without an opportunity to resolve the situation. I mean, that has to be taken into consideration, right? So we're going to see right now nothing concrete, nothing specific has been shared, just a big announcement. And the only thing that was announced is that they stated within 30 days we should see some sort of executive action. Right now they're working on the details. So that's where we stand right now with immigration news. The rest of it still stands, meaning the prohibition on most immigrant visas, prohibition on work-related visas like H-1Bs and stuff. So far, I know that new rule, of course, for the students, as I did in one of my videos, is devastating, meaning that those students that, for safety reasons only, the university stated would go online, those students are asked to leave the United States, okay, or find a different school within a couple of months, which is very tough. That's one of the worst news that we received. And that's where we stand. So, you know, I hope that the action that they're announcing will be positive, but you have to take the history of the previous actions into consideration and adjust your expectations, I guess. All right, so let me now answer some of your questions. Let me see. Now, I personally speak English and Russian. So when you ask your questions, please try to do that in English. I'm going to use automatic translation and I will respond to the questions that I see in Spanish in English. Hello, I'm 11 years old here. Can you apply for a visa? If you've been here in the United States for 11 years, can you apply for a visa just because of that? Probably not. But if you have some other factors, okay, if you were a child under 21, you may qualify for something called special immigrant juvenile status. If you are an adult and qualify for cancellation of removal, I don't advise you to go into that process voluntarily, but if you can, if you are placed in removal proceedings, you may qualify for cancellation of removal or green card with a judge if you've been in the United States for 10 years, accumulated continuous presence, meaning that you've never been in immigration court proceedings, didn't have charges criminal brought against you, and you have a qualifying relative who is going to experience extreme hardship, then you may have a relief in the form of a cancellation of removal just because you've been here for 11 years, okay? So actually you need 10. So that's in a nutshell. You also may qualify for status, let's say based on a U visa, if you're a victim of a crime, direct or indirect victim of a crime. Maybe some of your family members had some filings that you may benefit from. So usually, it takes me some time to go over with you over your circumstances and see if there is anything there that can help you. All right, so what about VAWA and I-45? How long does it take now? You may check the processing times. It depends on the situation, all right? Depends on the security background checks, for the need of the interview, if there are waivers, no waivers, if you need a waiver or not. I would say in general, it would take at least 9 months. And nowadays, when they're threatening to shut themselves down because they don't have the money, and coronavirus, of course, it may take much longer, right? So it's hard for me to predict that. How long before you can file for a person after you get your citizenship? File the next day. Which person and who's you're going to sponsor? Meaning you became a citizen. Now, if you can file the next day for your brother or sister, right? For whoever else you want to sponsor fiancé petition, file petition for your fiancé, petition that you could not file when you were a green card holder. So there is no timeline for that. Maybe there are some other factors you want to take into consideration, but by itself, the next day. Is still DB Lottery 2020 immigration visa banned? That's correct. That's correct. They're not allowed to come in. Does the presidential proclamation affect F1 visas? Presidential proclamation affects almost everybody except for certain exempt groups, spouses of U.S. citizens, children of U.S. citizens, and aging out children of lawful permanent residents. Okay, children is under 21. The rest of the categories are affected, unfortunately. I have been married for the past 7 years, and I'm currently in the process of filing for my citizenship. My case is still under review at the moment. However, now my wife is requesting for us to get a divorce. My question is, will this divorce proceedings affect my case? Not sure which part of your case is under review. Perhaps you're referring to the request of the removal of the condition on your green card, right? Maybe. If that's the case, divorce will, of course, affect your case, because then you'll have to change the grounds. If your petition was originally filed jointly, and now your wife would like to divorce you, you will have to change the grounds for the I-751 petition to remove the conditions. So you need to discuss that situation with your attorney as soon as possible. All right. Question in Spanish. I'm using translator from the Facebook to translate it. Hello, I'm 20 years old here. I have 3 children. I can try to get work permit. Not really. Without more, you've been here for 20 years old and for 20 years, and you have 3 children. I think that's the correct translation. By itself, you will not be able to. But again, there may be some factors there that may change my answer. If you had a legal entry into the United States and now one of your children is 21 and older, they may file for you. Maybe someone tried sponsoring you before April 30th, 2001, and you are qualified for 245I exception, and now someone else or your job may sponsor you, something like that, then you may qualify. Maybe you were a victim direct or indirect victim of a crime, maybe then you will qualify, even though your visa is taking very long time, but it's something opposed to nothing when you're filing for it. Any status on I-360 just pending applications. Most of the applications for I-360s that I filed for my clients, the ones that were stuck because of the 18-21 years old issue, were actually approved shortly or within like 5-something months after the class action resolution came. So some of them are still pending. Very small amount are still pending, perhaps the extra checking for your qualifications, but basically I found that they are actually been moving pretty well. Okay, so I-360 petitions. Do you have when canceled interview appointments will have a new date? Guys, really do not know. As I stated, none of my cases have been rescheduled. Maybe some lawyers have different experience, but none, I haven't seen any reschedulings yet. All right, so hi, I will not have hearing anymore. The judge placed me in waiting list for a visa number. My individual hearing was November 18, cancellation of removal. Do you think I can still receive this visa number, or the court is not sent anything out? I don't think courts have been sending this out, but again, I would not know. What I recommend you to do is to talk to your attorney on a case who won your cancellation of removal, and they will probably be a better source of information in this case than me. Good day. My wife is currently not working. She petitioned for me. If she applies for unemployment, will it affect my adjustment of status when the interview comes around? It depends. All right. Directly and indirectly. First of all, when you guys filed, did you file your case before February 24th, 2020? And if you did, it means that, and at that time your wife was working, it means that you probably already passed the step of initial review for the public charge determination, right? And at the interview, if they're going to ask her if she's working and she says, well, I'm still on unemployment, if at that time she's still going to be on unemployment, usually they do not make out of it a big deal, all right? Even though I would recommend, just in case, to have a joint sponsors document ready. If, however, you filed your case after February 24th, 2020, it's not the fact of unemployment, but it's the fact that now they may view you as being a threat of becoming a public charge, because after the date, stricter rules are applying, all right? And again, I would recommend that you find a joint sponsor and perhaps present evidence of self-sufficiency according to the declaration I-944 if you are subject to those rules. Again, discuss it with your attorney. By itself, unemployment usually is not a problem at the time of the interview. Has never, in my experience, has not been, but I usually recommend in situations like that to have a joint sponsor just in case. But remember, if you filed your case after the stricter rules apply, then you have to prepare better, because honestly, many people are on unemployment right now due to coronavirus. So would it mean an automatic denial for everybody who filed for adjustment of status? I don't think that would be fair. If I was denied when I filed under my mother, I was about 33 years old. Can I refile? If I was denied when I was under my mother, I was 33 years old. Can I refile? Not sure what you filed, okay? Perhaps you can, perhaps you cannot. It depends. Unfortunately, will not be able to provide a good answer here. I would need to have more information. Does President Proclamation affect I-130 spouse green card holder file for wife living out of the USA? I-130s by itself are not affected, okay? The petition that you file is still technically being processed. It's not, especially if there is a spouse, who is a US citizen, it's the interviews and visas that are affected, all right? They're basically placed on hold. It doesn't mean that you will never be able to come to the United States. That's not what the proclamation says. It cannot say that, because effectively it would change the law. It says that the coming into the United States is delayed, all right? So the spouse who's a US citizen is outside. I mean, right now they may face problems with the sponsoring situation, because sponsor has to have a domicile in the United States unless certain exceptions apply. So check with your attorney, right? Who knows your case better than me? But generally speaking, you know, that should not apply to you, because you're a spouse of a US citizen. I filed them on 30 November. How long do you think I will have to wait to get my interview date? Okay, the I-130 was filed for you in November. Who filed I-130 for you? Spouse, brother, sister, sibling. If it's a spouse, presumably, and it's you are in the United States waiting for adjustment of status, usually it would take about 9 months. Now, I really do not know, okay? Depends on what's going to happen with USCIS, if they will receive their money or not. And of course, depends on coronavirus situation, because even though they're saying they're reopening, they're not working full force as they did, even for common sense reasons. Let's say there is exposure in Vermont Service Center, and the service center gets shut down for disinfection for a week, and they don't process that mail, and in those 5 days, a lot of cases are being filed, and that's how this backlog is just rolling and rolling and rolling. So it's hard for me to say, really. The main thing, if you received your receipts, all right, you should be getting employment authorization if you were filing for adjustment of status simultaneously. And at least that should be good for now. I filed while I received my C31 card and my C9 card, my status saying fee was waived. What does it mean? All I can tell you that if you received your C31 card, it seems that your VAWA was approved, all right? So you should discuss that with an attorney who helped you to file your case. Take long now, work permit renewal. I apply almost 1.5 months. I'm still waiting for my receipt letter. Yes, it takes a long time to receive receipts. So if you now, when you file something with immigration, make sure you have a tracking number for the mail, all right? So at least you can track if it was received, but it does take a very long time to receive your receipt. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. I'm going to be keeping updating you regarding various news that we are receiving about immigration. If there will be some wonderful immigration order, I will always let you know right away who's going to qualify, who's not, what it's going to mean for all of us. And of course, if there are negative news, likewise, you need to be prepared. Make sure that the courts have, and USCIS have your updated addresses. It's very, very important for the time they will be rescheduling your hearings and interviews. Make sure they have updated addresses, right? That's number one that you need to worry now about. USCIS, you call them. It's better to call them, so this way they change your address for all the forms that are pending for you. And for immigration court, to change your address, if you moved, you have to do it within 5 days of moving. You have to mail in a notice for the change of address, and you have to give a copy to the prosecutor always. Remember that. Thank you very much again for joining. Like, share, and I hope to see you soon.